listeners tuning in. Today we have the distinct privilege of welcoming a true multifaceted voice in Sri Lankan public life, a distinguished journalist, political commentator, award-winning poet and translator whose sharp critiques and profound reflections have shaped our cultural and intellectual discourse for decades. Educated at Royal College, Harvard University and Cornell, our guest is as comfortable dissecting complex socio-political realities as he is exploring the delicate nuances of singular literature and verse. Beyond his formidable footprint in journalism, having led publications like The Nation and contributed extensively across our media landscapes, he is also passionate, chess strategist and a fierce advocate for a more grounded, rigorous appreciation of the arts. We are honored to have him with us on the program today to share his insights on writing, culture and the currents of our times. A warm welcome to you, Malinda Seneviratne, and thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Glad to be here.
Wonderful. You have often reflected on the profound impacts of early radio and songs like Chandra Madaluyata. From your childhood days in Kurunegala, how did these early acoustic landscapes over Radio Ceylon shape your relationship with music and words later in life?
Well, my grandfather had a radio and he would turn it on early morning. So first there was Spirit and there were various programs, and those are the songs that we grew up with because all the holidays were spent in Kurunegala. So early morning and late evening were the times that we got to listen to the radio, because the rest of the time we were in the garden playing cricket or something else. Radio Ceylon, I can't remember the exact channel, but those were formative years anyway. And songs such as, that's how we grew to love the country, like Ahasa Simbina Giri Kanduru, Polawa Temana Vyavsairu, how we got a sense of the map of our country, our land, and grew to love this country and engage with it in ways that were meaningful. Those were lessons that we were not really, I'm sure they were taught in the classroom, maybe we were not listening, but the lessons came from music and, thanks to Radio Ceylon back in the day, and then, of course, later SLBC.
Having spent decades as a prominent journalist, editor and political commentator, how do you view the evolving role of the independent writer in navigating political and cultural shifts in Sri Lanka?
Well, now since there's social media, everyone is a quote-unquote journalist in his or her mind, and they can be independent to the extent they want. But of course they are framed by their upbringing, by their ideological outcome preferences, their ideological predilections and so on. To be independent of what is the question that one needs to ask, we are all complicit in one way or the other. But if we have the humility to recognize and admit when we are wrong, and we have the courage to push the boundaries whenever there are restrictions imposed on us, like, all media outfits have owners, whether it's a state or the private sector, and there are lines within which we are required to operate. That does not mean we stand in the middle and complain that, oh my God, there's no freedom of expression. You go to the outer edges, you try to be there, step out and check your notices, but consistently engage on behalf of the people.
Malinda, when you look back at your early days, perhaps sitting at your grandparents' house in Kurunegala, listening to Radio Ceylon, what is it about this particular song, Me Jeevana Ganga Dare by Nanda Malini? What is it about this particular song that immediately transports you back to that time, and why did you want to share it with our listeners today?
Actually, Me Jeevana Ganga Dare is from Satya Gita, that came much later, and that compelled me to recognize my neighbor, to recognize the person in the next seat, and seek and celebrate the commonalities that we have in the struggles that are common to us all. And it resonates with an older song, which is of course Me Sinhala Apage Rata, which I mentioned. A key line in that is Sama Karuna Guna Mahime, the equal expression of kindness to one and all. That is a sensibility that I think, of course, it would have come from many sources, but this is the a signature of that trait which became ingrained in my personality, I'd like to think. Maybe others might disagree. But those were the values that I got from Nanda Malini's songs. It's a sad day, of course, as everyone knows. We have lost a voice that shaped who we were. I mean, if Sunila Ariyaratne wanted to, reconstruct our DNA, it was Nanda Malini's voice that was the fine instrument which did it in a way that did not hurt, but in fact added to who we were, and in the most soft, gentle, tender way possible. So songs like that from that time, I think most people who grew up in the 70s and maybe in the 80s also, for a large part, the Sinhala listeners at least, were impacted one way or the other by Nanda Malini's songs. And of course, this was before CDs and YouTube and even cassettes, those were rare. We didn't have those instruments. It was the radio that was the instrument through which we got to hear all these things. And there were we didn't have hundreds of channels and podcasts and whatnot. It was Radio Ceylon, for good or bad. And those programs, looking back, were excellent, amazing. People who produced at Radio Ceylon back in the day, they had a vision. They were cultured in a way that, maybe is something that is lacking today. But they were building, of course, just more than 2 decades into independence, we were in the process of building a nation from scratch. And they were committed to that project.
Well, let's take a listen to this beautiful song by late Dr. Visharada Nanda Malini. voice, and today we have the distinct privilege of welcoming a truly multifaceted voice in Sri Lankan public life, a distinguished journalist, political commentator, award-winning poet and translator, whose sharp critiques and profound reflections have shaped our cultural and intellectual discourse for decades, Malinda Seneviratne. Malinda, winning the Grecian Award for Ages and the HAI Gunatilaka Prize for your translation of Sansare Dadyakara highlights a deep engagement with verse narrative. What draws you to the nuances of translation compared to original poetry?
Well, the translation, that was Simon Navagattegama Sansararanne Dadyakara, and I also won it for Mahinda Prasad Massimula's Senkottang. I'm not a professional translator, and I would be reluctant to say that I was a sworn translator or to swear by my translations. I did it because I fell in love with the original text. In all these instances, the original works were so moving and compelled me to share this with audiences that were not conversant in Sinhala. So that is how it all happens whenever it has happened. And, you try to do justice to that love, and hopefully it comes out well. In these two instances, apparently some people thought that they were good translations.
In your critical writings, you've frequently explored the complex intersection between an artist's personal creations and their public political stances. Where do you draw the line between appreciating enduring art and critiquing the artist's recantation?
Well, it's a little bit like the Father, Son and the Holy Ghost. You can't take them separately, but according to Father Tony Martin, I'm a Buddhist, but Father Tony Martin one day told me, you got to look at the entirety when you assess and evaluate a person's life. Now, for example, I might have issues with some of Nanda Malini's songs. Sunila Arirratne wrote it, so the ideological weight is his, but she gave voice, so she agreed to it at some level. But then today, as I was coming here, I was thinking, I have been critical of both of them, but I need to write about Sunila Arirratne. I wrote an article about Nanda Malini last night for the Sunday Observer, and the title I gave it was Her Name is Lanka, because there is a song in one of her albums titled Mage Nama Lanka. She is everything that is our country, the beauty, the fallibility, the courage, how resplendent we are, how resilient we are, and how beautiful we can be. Similarly, when you talk about Sunila Arirratne or anyone else, their public lives, we are all humanly frail. Who is perfect? And it is, of course, we can call people out. People can call us out. That's legitimate. But then you have to be kind enough to also take into account, the prettier sides of their lives, their contributions to our society, how they have made our individual lives a little better, a little happier. So, I don't know, you can't really take a pencil or a pen or a marker and draw a line and say, okay, this is... But in the overall, if you are honest, you have to acknowledge the good, even when you critique the bad, what you believe is to be, questionable.
You've written extensively about how a work of art belongs just as much to the listener as it does to the creator. What personal chord does this specific song, Chandra Madalu Yata by late Dr. Nanda Malini, this specific song strikes for you, and what emotional or intellectual space does it occupy in your own life?
Well, it's a children's song officially. Mother giving some advice to a daughter. But if you listen to it several times and you wonder about it, you think about it, reflect about it, you know that it is not only a song for kids. What really touched me is that it's like a take on the Buddha's treatise or charter on free inquiry, the Kalama Sutra. Don't believe everything that you say, that you hear. Don't believe everything that you see just because someone says it. There may be billas and goni billas, and just remember, this is I, your mother, who is speaking to you. And that is a life lesson. It's a song that keeps coming back to me. I read it or listened to it differently way back in the 70s. But each time I listen to it, I'm thankful to the lyricist Malinda Seneviratne. Not many people really talk about him, especially not among the English listeners, I believe. But those lines they stay with you. They stayed with me. And in some way, I think it was fundamental in, teaching me to be critical of things, not to take things at face value, but to understand that there's something that moves around beneath the surface, and not knowing that can cost us.
Let's take a listen to this song. Malinda, beyond writing and media, you have a long-standing passion for chess, having captained Royal College to a national championship and currently serving with the Chess Federation of Sri Lanka. How do the strategic principles of chess influence your approach to writing and public commentary?
The thing is, Ramesh, chess is a strategic game, as everyone knows, but it is, we are doing SWOT analysis from day one for 3-4 hours in a game. No other sport. In cricket, you take a run, you go to the non-strikers and, you're relaxed, less intense. You're not engaged in that same intense way. Here, you have to solve problems for 3-4 hours at a stretch. It's relentless. You can't take a break. And so what you're doing is you're always assessing situations, right? And you're looking for optimal solutions. You assess the opponent, you read all the factors that are involved. So it becomes almost intuitive to apply those principles of play in real life. I have not really analyzed the things that I have said and done in terms of, what aspect of chess made me do this. But, like in any sport, of course, you learn to take victory and defeat without, shouting or crying about it. But apart from that, in your engagement, you are able to, I think, appreciate the complexity of this. It's not black and white, although there are black pieces and white pieces. The permutations are like, crazy. The combinations, it's like just 64 squares and 32 pieces, but if it was all predictable, then we would have stopped playing the game, 1,000 years ago, So, as the president of the Chess Federation, I believe that our vision of this particular executive committee is to make sure that every child learns to play chess. He or she does not have to play chess for the rest of their lives and become grandmasters or something like that. But just imagine if every child plays chess, starting from next year, say in 13 years, you will have a nation of so many thousands, hundreds of thousands of problems. And we know that we have a nation with problems. All nations are problematic at any time in history. So you're giving them certain skills because chess covers the four critical, the main elements of education, which is critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication. So these are things that they can learn in a fun way. Right now, people may not know this, but 40 to 60,000 children play chess every year, and that number keeps growing. We have probably the highest density of chess players in the region. And when you take into account that of the 100 educational zones, chess is played in 72, which does not mean that everyone in each of those 72 zones play chess, but we don't want to leave anyone behind. And also things like chess for people with disabilities, chess in prisons, chess for the elderly, in homes for the elderly, orphanages, social chess. We don't want to leave anyone behind. We think it's good for everyone. We were just talking off the record about how for people our age, Ramesh, it can delay dementia. So, but in general, this is a beautiful game. I find what happens on the 64 squares is just the stories. It's a library, endless library of stories. Our moves are stories, and that is poetry in motion for me.
Never mind about Malinda, my age. Even when I was young, I could never get my head around it.
You would have got your head around to other things, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Malinda, you have often critiqued elements of the local English literary sphere for tendencies towards self-congratulation. What steps do you think are necessary to foster a more grounded and critically rigorous literary culture in Sri Lanka?
As always, what makes writers or artists better is a review culture where people seriously engage with. You don't review only the popular films or the good films. You should be able to review the bad films. And I might be a bit too harsh in that's a kind of a sweeping statement. That doesn't mean that I don't appreciate some of the really great writing in English. For example, Shehan Karunatilaka, who won the Booker and all that. Chinaman. I haven't read his other book, but he's a brilliant writer. And Ramya Jeerasinghe, Vivmari Vanderpoten, they're really good poets, contemporary poets. Of course, we have a long history, Lakdas Vikramsinghe, Patrick Fernando, Jean Arasanayagam to an extent. My father also wrote poetry, and that was a side thing that he did, and he made it to certain syllabuses in the English departments. But what can be done is, if we don't read, we don't have the legitimacy, we don't have the right to pass judgment on things. But I feel that there's a change over the years, and that is partly due to awards like the Gratian. People, they're becoming brave enough to publish what they write, to share what they write, and there are more people writing in English, and I think there's a transition that has happened where, maybe 30, 40 years ago, those who wrote in English grew up in English-speaking households. Now that is not necessarily the case. There are really good writers whose parents did not come from that kind of background, but they attended either international schools, or they studied in English medium, or they really worked hard to read and write and speak in English, so that they became as fluent in English as they were in Sinhala or Tamil. So I think a lot has changed over the the last 2 or 3 decades, and we are heading in the right direction. But as always, if you think that Colombo is the heart of Sri Lanka, you lost it. If you think that the circles that you inhabit is a microcosm of the entire island, then you lost it. You got to travel, you got to talk, you got to see, you have to read, you have to know something of the history, the heritage, the complexities. Everything that Nanda Malini was saying about in that particular song, Hasasimbinagiri Kanduru Polovatemana Vavasairu. If you don't know what a vava is, and if you think it's just a body of water, and don't recognize that it is an ecology, it has social, cultural, political meaning for people who engage with it in one way or the other, then you won't be able to write that. So traveling always makes us better people, more tolerant, I suppose, and gives us experience which we over time learn to treat with equanimity. And of course we cultivate that sama karuna guna mahime, the ability to be kind to one another.
Given your deep appreciation for verse, translation and the power of words, what is it about the lyrical composition of Buddhanu Bhavena that stands out to you amidst the broader landscape of our musical heritage?
I think, there are lots of Buduguna, devotional songs which refer to the Buddha and Buddhist philosophy. In this case, actually, maybe this is not a song whose lyrics I like best in that genre, but Buddhanu Bhavena was one of those, Ramesh, those early Radio Ceylon songs that I heard early in the morning, and it keeps. Of course, I don't think they played it every day, but you remember it as being played every day because it kind of struck you at some deep chord within you early in the morning. I was in another room, I'm still not got up and, waking up and, not really wanting to get up, but you having to get up. And, my grandfather, early morning, 5:30, he's there by the radio. And Buddhanu Bhavena is that memory, I suppose, that the nostalgia for that time, more than anything else. Not so much the lyrics, although the lyrics are certainly beautiful.
Yes, it certainly takes me back, and because you don't hear these beautiful songs anymore, not as often as it used to be, but it takes you back, isn't it, when you listen to it?
Yes.
Let's take a listen.
Mudita
listen to it over and over again, isn't it, Malinda?
Yes, when I was listening to this, you can forget the lyrics. You might not know Sinhala. You might not live in Sri Lanka. You might not know the land or never encountered Buddhist philosophy. But there is the music and the voice. It touches you. I think you should ask some foreigners what they feel to really test this theory. But aren't we blessed that, we have been touched by such a doctrine, and that it is so empowering to really think about the true meaning of those things, and you just shed the clutter, the frills and things of it. Hela Derana is our land. Jana Jayatu Jayamangala, and we can triumph. That hope, that confidence in such a sweet and soft way. It's not like one of these ranagi where you're like beating the drums and saying, yeah, do this. But it's nevertheless, it kind of goes in and stays within us.
Malinda, having served as the Director, CEO of the Hector Kobakadua Agrarian Research and Training Institute, how did your background in sociology and development studies at institutions like Harvard and Cornell inform your approach to public administration?
Ramesh, this comes under the Ministry of Agriculture, so people were saying I should be in media, not in agriculture. And what does he know about agriculture? But this is agrarian studies. We look at the social, political, economic, environmental aspects of agriculture, because if you ignore all those things, and we didn't do plant breeding, for example, but you do any kind of agriculture without understanding the context, the social, political, economic surroundings, factors that impact decision making, for example, then you might increase the possibility of making errors. And so my background in sociology and development studies, I think, helped me. I wanted to be an academic in the social sciences, and I think I valued research over rhetoric. And the institute itself is mandated to advocate, not to implement. And over the years, although the recommendations have by and large been ignored, the immense corpus of data that this institute has collected has informed people who have formulated policy, who ended up picking on this to do this over that and so on. So that helped, I believe. But then I also have a history. I was the editor of the institute way back in 1993. So I knew every inch of that, every square inch of the institute. And some of those people I've known from a long time ago. It's an institute. The buildings were designed by Jeffrey Bawa, so that was also aesthetically pleasing. It's a nice place to be. But I relished the work, the opportunities, and I realized that Sri Lanka, we have I think 8 or 9 agriculture faculties which produce a lot of good work, but they delve into all these things. But their research findings, the recommendations that they derive from those findings, they never come onto the policymakers' table. So I wanted the institute to eventually evolve into a conduit for all that. So with that in mind, I signed MOUs with all those universities. So not just the agriculture faculties, the universities themselves, sociologists, statisticians, they could all get into this stream and come up with policies that could help the country in the future. So that was how my sociology came into play, I think.
With your personal blogs accumulating millions of views over the years, how has the digital shift in publishing changed the ways writers connect with audiences compared to traditional print media?
We are doing stuff in 20 seconds and 30 seconds now, I think. TikTok and Instagram, and it keeps moving so fast, it gets lost in the sea of information. And I don't know, maybe I have a following which I built over time. My articles blog, I just post articles that have been published. There are probably about 4,000 of them, and over the last 15 years that has 4 million page views. And very strangely, I found that there's been a spike. Last month there was 200,000. Some days I get 15,000. And so too my poetry blog. There are about 700, 800 poems there. It's malindapoetry.blogspot.com. I sometimes get 15, 20,000 page views a day. I don't check the stats very often. I don't know how that has happened, but I think it's a dinosaur. That kind of thing is on the way to extinction. And it is more, in my case, an archive rather than anything else. I've lived long enough to know that, I can write millions of words. I can talk for hours, and that is just a drop in the ocean when it comes to changing the world as we know it. But we do our part and hope for the best.
Songs often act as anchors for a particular era or cultural awakening. How does this piece, Kala Vaven Gat Diyadotak, how do listeners pick up between the lines when they hear it today?
I don't know how iconic it is for anyone, but in terms of saying what someone means to you, I think Malinda Seneviratne wrote this, I'm not sure, but it's exquisite poetry. There's nothing new in all this, From the beginning of time, people have said, I love you, and people have said, I love you too. And then you say, why did you leave me? What's wrong with me? Is she or he better? Will you ever come back to me? I will be here for you if you need me. That kind of stuff is there. And, she's a rose. That has been said in so many languages, in so many ways, using different metaphors. But this one is, Nanda Malini says that this person who has captured the imagination is like a handful of water from the Kala Weaver. So if you don't know what the Kala Weaver is, you wouldn't understand it. That is iconic in our history, in our heritage, and a way of seeing ourselves and who we are. Kala Vaven Gat Diyadotak say, Vati Vati Oba Matamavadi, you are as valuable. Now, if you have never seen the Kala Weaver, just a body of water and a handful of water, how different can that be from what you get from a faucet, from a tap, right? Bomaluing water, bokolyak, like a bow leaf that has fallen from. Now, that might not resonate with people who are not Buddhists, maybe, but people who have grown up that way and maybe because of that have deep connection with those iconography or the bow tree. I sit under the bow tree and I hear music. The rustle of the leaves is so calming. So a bow leaf has particular cultural meaning. But then the rest of the song also about the Katapat Paura, the graffiti in Sigiriya, like a verse that has flown out from the Katapat Paura. I have kept you safe and I will read it at my pleasure, at my leisure. Now, that kind of way of saying you mean so much to me is unique, it's new. It's saying I love you, I want you, I need you, you are the world to me in ways that have not been said before.
And let's take a listen to this iconic song, Kala Vaven Gat Diyadotak by Dr. Nanda Malini. Malinda, we were appreciating the lyrics of this song, and you had a lot of nice things to say about it. And why don't you give a further description about it?
About the song itself?
Yes.
Now, Stanley Pierce did the melody, I think. This is a problem, we don't know. It's not, we hear a voice and we don't even know who wrote the song for the most part. Unless you become iconic like Nanda Malini and you become known like Sunil Ariratne. Sunil Ariratne has a persona, that is not dependent on Nanda Malini. So this particular song, when you say Samanala Sirasin Kilihunu Buduras, I haven't seen Buduras and Samanala Sirasin, but it's just, imagination that's allowed, there's poetic license. Siyasin Dakagat Mehene Kamen, Bhikkhuni, who had seen this with her own eyes, and is beyond anything you can imagine. Paramanande, it's happiness beyond compare. Bindibin, Sangamok Satutehi Amaras Valandimi. This is the emancipatory joy. Someone might say it's blasphemous, but there's no blasphemy in Buddhism. But it's like too much to liken what the effect of a man or woman does to you to something that is akin to nirvana. But love exaggerates. When you are in love, everything seems larger than anything else, more beautiful, deeper, meaningful, and everything. That's, I think, permissible. But again, as I mentioned, the metaphors, the analogies here are unique and unparalleled, and that moved me a lot. I listened to this song off and on. In fact, when I was writing my master's thesis, I was writing about the importance of water, because we are an agricultural society, and the importance of irrigation. And I mentioned these lyrics. Also, Dulgane's Gamata Kalin Kalaweve Nildiyavara Ape Amma. Your mother is like the blue waters of the Kalaweva. What greater celebration can there be of a mother? Because Kalaweva is what it is. If you know what Kalaweva is in our history, in our culture, in our general sensibilities.
In your critical essays, you argue that a work of art immediately belongs to the recipient just as much as the creator. How does this perspective affect how modern audiences should consume and interpret politically charged art?
The thing is, this is not something I have said. It has been said by many people all over the world in different ways across history. But say Mona Lisa is what it is to you, it is not what it is to me. So then it belongs to you as it belongs to me. My father once wrote, it's a beautiful thing. There was a passport photo, extra passport size photograph that he had. He gave it to my sister as she went abroad for her studies, and he had written on the back of it, the sky does not belong less to us, although it belongs to everyone else, right? The sky doesn't become any less to us just because it belongs to everyone, something like that. So, okay, who owns the sky? Creator God, according to some cosmological beliefs, but regardless, that sky that you see or do not see is not the sky that I saw or didn't see. So a work of art, whether it is political charged or otherwise, it depends on how you take it. Samananda Malini's songs are very political, and if you ask 10 people, there may be some who may be upset, or some who say, yeah, this is it, this is the song of this generation, this is the song for our time, for this political moment. So in any work of art, that is, how can you look at the Aukana and be moved and be able to say that is exactly how another person views it? We don't know. We really don't know. For someone, it's just a statue. But the Buddha Lambana Pritya would be, it would have some meaning to someone else. So political art also, it's up to us to do what we do with it. And someone can listen to Nanda Malini's songs and say it's a call to arms. People did that in the late 80s, but she's not to blame for that. Not to the extent that some people accuse her. Others did not. Because in that Pavana album, there were songs that are timeless. Although some of them were, I might find them, a bit uninteresting or out of order.
Looking back at a multifaceted career spanning journalism, poetry, translation and coaching, what core themes or projects are currently capturing your creative focus?
Well, right now I'm attempting to translate Viragya. I mean, in terms of literature, I'm quite busy with the chess. By default, if you're the president, you have to run around, and there's a lot of work to be done. My wife asked this question about 15 years ago: what else do you want to achieve in life? So I told her that I never had such objectives, which is the truth. But I feel that I have not entertained people enough. So there's an element of me that doesn't take myself seriously. I think I'm a clown. I like to be a clown. I like to make people laugh. But what gives me, I was telling my younger daughter a couple of nights ago, I don't know how it is for others, but for me, I draw meaning in my life, my engagement with you and your older sister. I would do anything for you. So all the happiness in the deeper sense is the joy I get in being your father and doing things for you. And the most serious regrets I have are the moments when I look back and I feel I haven't been the father that I ought to have been, or the moments when I should have been with you but I was not. So that kind of captures it all.
Very humble of you. Every song tells a story of the airwaves as well. What is the personal story behind your choice of this track, Vasante Nidaun, and why did you feel it was a must include for our conversation today?
It was a song that was introduced to me by my wife when we first fell in love, and she sang it to me. So I felt good about myself that, that I had that kind of monumental impact on her, because it was like the seasons changing. So it's a very personal kind of thing.
Malinda, our time has flown by far too quickly, even though we have been speaking just over an hour. From exploring the enduring resonance of early radio and the complexities of literary translation to the strategic discipline of chess and the responsibilities of public commentary, your insights have given our listeners so much food for thought today. Thank you once again for taking the time to join us on the program, for sharing your perspective with such candor, and for your continued contribution to our intellectual and cultural landscape. It has been an absolute pleasure having you with us.
It's one of the better ways to spend the Saturday morning.
To our listeners, stay tuned as we continue with more music and programming, and have a wonderful day.